everybody. Good afternoon. We're just waiting for a few more people to join and we will get started. And hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Aliana Pinheiro, and I'm the Impact Director here at BII. And we're really excited to have you all in our webinar today. I'd invite you to please put your name and where you're joining us from, and whether it's warm outside or cold where you are. Is it snowing? In the chat, just as a quick hello and an icebreaker in the chat. And then we will get started. So again, welcome to our second Community Investor webinar. We're really looking at why social impact investing matters, and sort of using BII as a case study. I'm Aliana Pinheiro, the Impact Director at BII, and I'm going to just tell you a bit about our work before I pass it over to our moderator, Regina. BII is a nonprofit impact investing fund. We work to build financial, social, and political power for entrepreneurs of color to help close the racial wealth divide. As an impact investor, we're focused on supporting the people, places, and enterprises that are shaping our shared future and a more just and equitable economy. So how do we do that? We manage two integrated capital funds that invest in impact-focused ventures owned by people of color, entrepreneurs of color, and in community-owned and controlled real estate to prevent displacement. So over the last 10 years, we've invested about $14 million in 85 enterprises, and we've provided hands-on technical assistance, coaching, and resources to over 100 businesses a year. And so this works to sustain and strengthen our portfolio and the small businesses in our ecosystem here in Massachusetts. We're also dedicated to advancing the field of impact investing overall, ensuring that it has a racial and economic justice lens. And that brings us to our topic today. Our signature program for emerging fund managers has trained over 50 fund managers of color and women fund managers of color to launch integrated capital funds across the country. And so we have about a dozen capital-based funds that have community-based funds that have launched that are collectively moving close to $100 million across the country to communities of color. This is exciting work. And so we believe that through the way that capital is allocated, BII is transforming the way that capital is allocated in order to build community wealth, ownership, and power. And so today we're talking about, how can we engage community in impact investing to build this community wealth and power? Impact investing can often be kept just for those who are wealthy enough to be considered accredited investors. But here at BII, we want to make sure that people from all communities have access to investing and participating in this work that we do here. And so with that, I will hand it over to Regina, who will kick it off with this fabulous panel that we have.
Thank you, Aliana. Okay, so I'm just going to share my screen really quickly. Okay, so hello everyone, and thank you for joining us for another installment of our Community Investor Series, Building Our Shared Future, Why Impact Investing Matters. My name is Regina Sarpong, and I am the Marketing Manager here at Boston Impact Initiative and your moderator for today. We appreciate you joining us, and we have an awesome panel, lined up for you today. So we're going to jump right in, starting with Henry, who I put right on the screen. Henry is the investment director at Boston Impact Initiative Fund and is focused on the intersection of impact investing, economic justice, and building resilient inner city communities. He has over 20 years of experience evaluating investment opportunities, structuring securities, raising capital, and financing business growth. So thank you, Henry, for joining us today.
Thank you.
Oh, no, did I go too far back? Yes. Next, we have Jeysi Zuniga. Jeysi is the president and CEO of Synergy Contracting Incorporated, an environmental remediation, demolition, and construction services company that is a certified women, minority, disadvantaged, and LGBT operated business enterprise. As the first member of her family to have immigrated to the US, she is passionate about equality, inclusion, diversity, and helping others. So thank you for joining us, Jeysi.
Thank you so much for having me. Good afternoon, y'all.
And last but not least, Marcia Chong Rosado. Marcia is a multiracial Ecuadorian immigrant to the United States. Marcia is a director of Cinematica Labs, focused on building mission-oriented entrepreneurial ecosystems. Marcia has led community movements and conversations focused on Latino investment, power, and on uplifting BIPOC and diverse founders. Marcia is a multidimensional and navigates cultures across continents, socioeconomic spaces, and industries. Thank you, Marcia, for joining us today.
Thank you, Regina and team. Excited to be here.
So special thank you to all of our panelists for joining us. Before we begin, some housekeeping, and I will stop sharing screens here. So we can all see one another. Beautiful. So before we begin some housekeeping, please make sure that if you are not speaking, your microphones are muted just so we can hear all of the panelists. If you have a question at any point during the session, please feel free to drop them in the chat. You are welcome to ask questions in the chat. We do have some folks from BII that will be able to answer certain questions. If you have questions for the panelists, you can also drop them in the chat and we will ask them at the end for the Q&A portion. You are also welcome to unmute and ask your question once the Q&A starts at the very end. And just to let you all know, we are recording this session and will share with all registered participants. So our first question for our wonderful event today will be going to Henry. And Henry, we want to know, what is BII? What does BII do? And why should people care about this work?
Great question. Thank you for the question, and I'm happy to be here with everyone. As Aliana mentioned at the beginning, what is BI? We are an impact investment fund. Let me unpack that a little bit. Basically, we are an investor in small businesses. As an investor, we are interested equally, if not more so, in the impact and the community impact, the environmental impact, the societal impact that a company would have ahead of us even looking at the financial outcomes of that company. So it's very important to us that that company is giving back to society in key ways. One of the key aspects that we look at to start with is economic justice. And we're focused in on Black and Brown entrepreneurs primarily. And then beyond that, it's really a matter of, okay, well, again, how does this company really contribute to society and what impact are they having? Why is it important? I think that if we take a step back, the way the society is organized right now, our capitalistic system, there's a lot of people doing for themselves, a lot of businesses doing for themselves. And I think that it's important that we really start looking at, how do we as a community build ourselves up? How do we support each other? And how do we give back to our respective communities and that way uplift in a cooperative manner as opposed to an individualistic approach?
And Henry, you mentioned economic justice being one of our criteria points. What does that mean for an entrepreneur or a business to be focused on economic justice or economic growth?
Absolutely. So, through some unfortunate circumstances, many populations in America have been left out intentionally and sometimes not intentionally out of the traditional system, if you will. So there's not equal opportunity in all cases. Economic justice for me means that we're trying to give opportunity where opportunity has been withheld previously, making capital available to populations that previously have either been denied or withheld, where capital has been withheld from them, and giving them the opportunity to start their businesses and to have a certain amount of self-determination with their businesses so they can reap the benefits of entrepreneurialism.
Beautiful. That actually ties me right into Jeysi, who is our entrepreneur on the call. And Henry is talking about entrepreneurs empowering themselves in the way that their businesses show up in their very own communities. So, as an entrepreneur, Jeysi, tell us the story of how synergy contracting came about and what your experience has been like in that industry, and then also what brought you to BII.
No, absolutely. Well, thank you so much. Wonderful question. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you. I want to the possible investors and to the present and future investors. I want to tell you, first of all, thank you so very much. It's an effort of so many parties to bring economic justice. It's, we all put our 5 cents and, some other 5 million, but, it's equally, we're very grateful for the support that BII has given us. The reason why Synergy was born, it was out of the need of having a company that allowed first generation immigrants and especially single moms, myself being one of them. I came into the construction industry by accident, as I'm sure probably 95% of women have come. Like 25 years ago, like we were not welcomed. It wasn't a job that wasn't offered to us. We just fell into it, and then we showed and we proved that we're wonderful at what we do, and that we deserve the inclusion. And because of that lack of inclusion into positions of decision-making positions, that was my need to create Synergy, right? Not just be part of a company, but also have the opportunity to make decisions as to what's going to happen with the workforce. So, when I opened Synergy, the first thing I did was unionize it. Advised against all odds. Like, it was like, are you crazy? Like, that was literally like in unison, unionizing a company. But for me, it was pretty clear. I wanted that everyone that came and worked with me to build this company to not feel concerned about their future, about how much money they were going to make, about, like the opportunities of growth and implementation and, insurance and retirement plans. And so that's how it was born. And, and we worked really, really hard to, to create our own path. And like you said, right, like it's a very male-dominated environment. So it's difficult. It's very difficult to make your own way. But then if you just stay long enough and you keep on knocking on those doors, the right doors open. And so as I went, I found amazing people that believed in the vision I had for, we're located in Lawrence. So the main thing for me was to employ and not just give them work, but high paying jobs to, and bring out of, there's so much behind a job that people don't realize. Like I think about it, and I've witnessed how, especially women, right? Like how is that they're forced to stay in places that they don't want to be in, to stay in marriages they don't want to be in, because they're being abused jobs, that don't appreciate them, and to have that opportunity to provide them with jobs that now make them feel self-sufficient and empowers them and allows them to grow and to study. Oh, you know what? Now I want to design. Now I want my kids to go to college. There's so much behind that people don't see when our companies thrive. Because we're changing generations, entire generations, with one single thing that we changed, right? Which was the high paying jobs. With that being said, in order to make these, like these companies thrive, we need money. Right. But yeah, I'll talk about that in a little bit. But that's how it was born. Basically, that's how BII was. That's why Synergy was born, with the need of providing, immigrants and women the opportunity to go into fields that were not welcomed at before.
And Jeysi, has that been, because you're a woman-owned enterprise, has that been very challenging for you? You are, a minority, you are woman-owned business. You want to empower your employees, but what are the challenges you have faced? Because you have many years of experience in this industry.
It is just about staying strong and positive, and ignore the no's, because you get like 1,000 no's and then you get one yes, and that's what keeps you feeding until the next yes come. I feel like the biggest challenge for me is like staying strong and not really given too much thought about racism, about classism and misogyny. It's very difficult when you coming into a room and you're secluded. Like first minute in the room, the boys club, they just have their own corner, and there you are on your own. Like if there's no other women in the room, then you have to make yourself heard. So it is very difficult, but it is not the job itself. It is the environment and the status quo that makes it really, really hard to break those kind of barriers. That's the hardest part for me, to make it work and to not make it important.
Right. And wanting to transition, because Marcia, you're a community investor. So you're investing not just in the fund, but in enterprises like Synergy Contracting. And question for you is, how did you find BII? What encouraged you to invest? And how do your values align with the work that BII does?
Yes, and that's a great point. I'm not just an investor in the fund, but in the humans like Jeysi and in the visions that they have. But I was trying to think about this, and I was like, was it a newsletter? Where, like, did I hear about BII at first? But it was back in 2020, like rough COVID situation. And I ended up connecting with Ariana and Betty separately, and clearly staying connected, and really seeing the work of BII evolve. But Betty ended up sharing with me, about the Fund 2 opportunity. And what stuck out to me is that there was an opportunity not just for accredited investors, but for non-accredited investors to participate. And so from when I heard that, I was like, I want to learn more. Started looking at, of course, I went back to like, okay, what's the mission of BII? Is it aligned with what I care about, which is economic justice? Who are the humans, like the people on the team, who have been the founders they've supported with, and then also like, where are we going, and what's the multi-generational impact of investing in people like Jeysi at the end of the day? Like, where are those companies headed? And for me, I have been working in the startup and entrepreneurship world, and I mean, I'll just keep it real. Like there are certain structural challenges even in this field, places that may have nice missions and websites, but for me, I wanted to get a sense of like, what is the culture of this organization behind the scenes. And I got to see that at BII, and I got to see like, okay, they're willing to support founders, like Henry said, on the impact level, on the human level, besides just giving a founder dollars and let's see where it goes, and let's have financial return, which is important. I saw them go way above and beyond that, and those were some of the factors that where I was like, I would like to invest. And I even went back and I'm like, if you get to know me, I asked Betty a whole lot of questions via email, and she spent all the time answering that. And it was really, again, the mission, vision, team, the culture, who are the founders, and what's the multi-generational impact. And that was aligned with me and what I care about at the end of the day. And I wanted to get involved outside of like my full-time or side jobs. I wanted to explore that as a regular person. So my background is I'm an immigrant. I'm also breaking pathways in my family. And I appreciated Betty and others on a team even breaking down like, as an individual, what can my role be within the collective goal of BII? What does being a non-accredited investor mean? And really just having the curiosity to break down through all these questions that weren't necessarily in my like family or even close friend periphery. And
Marcia, I have an additional question for you actually, because you mentioned you are, well, first of all, I read your full bio, which you are very embedded in the entrepreneur community. You're very embedded in the economic justice community, but why is that very important to you? Why should that be important to the folks on this call? Like, the values of BII and you as Marcia align very well, but what are some of the things that you've encountered personally where you're like, this work matters and this is why?
Oh, because I mean, there are so many stats behind I come from a place of, and this is something I've been working through, but trying to come from a place of abundance. Like there are a lot of dollars and resources out there, yet there are stats showing how diverse founders, the challenges that diverse founders who truthfully reflect the majority in this country, the challenges that they've experienced in having access to these dollars. And I got to see that. And even from like an individual perspective, like wanting to have access to different products and services and needing like to do research and being like, well, I want to source from a diverse founder that's aligned with me. So I in working with these entrepreneurs over the past couple of years, it's just, those stats continue to be present, but I'm from a place of abundance where I know the money and the capital is there. And then also on an individual level, like the isms and the phobias are things that I've experienced in different ways. And just, I naturally am like, nope, like I'm going to put my energy and time and resources towards building the future and reimagining the future I want to see. And that is challenging all those isms and phobias at the end of the day.
Henry, Marcia brought up dollars. That is something that BII supports entrepreneurs of color and receiving for their businesses, helping them scale, helping them grow. So I think people hear investing, and that can be a lot for folks. Can you talk about the differences between what we do, which is impact investing, and traditional investing? And then can you talk a little bit about our investment criteria? How can entrepreneurs get access to these dollars of Fund 2?
A lot there. We'll start with the idea of, at BII, we do what we call relationship-based investing. We're very interested in getting to know the founders, understanding what their visions are, what their struggles have been, where they've come from as far as the genesis of their ideas, why they're doing what they're doing, etc., just so that we could really get an idea of what is the best way to invest in them and in their project. That investment may be a technical assistance. It may be financial investment. It may be investing through our networks and really opening up, from a business development standpoint as far as what they need at that point in time. The key is that we really want to approach this from the standpoint of aligning ourselves with founders and really understanding what it is that they need and where they're looking to go and helping them to get to that point. Next point or next question that you asked in there was, I forgot, if you can remind me.
Difference between traditional investing.
Yes. So traditional investing, most people are going to start with the idea of, does this business make money? And if so, how fast can they grow? And how much can I get when I exit? How much will I get at the end? I'm interested in whether or not a company is going to make money, but I'm interested in it from a few different perspectives. One of which is I'm really interested in, can this business sustain itself? Is it sound financially? Will it be a good place that can provide great jobs for its employees? Will it help in enriching that founder? Because we're very interested in the founder and the businesses, the companies and the employees doing well financially. That's important to us. It's also very important to us to not be extractive like the current market is, like the current tools that capitalism has given us, where they can be very extractive, taking out a lot of the profit and a lot of the benefit that a company would have. We really believe here at BII that it is those employees and that founder who are working and developing that value, that they should be the ones primarily to benefit from that. I'm providing a little bit of financial help that assists them in getting to their potential. For that, I think that it is important that I do receive some return, but it's very important, or more important, that that we are not extractive, and that the crux or the main the benefit of that company does accrue to the founder and to the employees. Beyond that, as far as criteria, what we look for is again, it's very important that we, the founders, we start with, who are we investing in? Who are the people? What are their characters? What kind of relationship can we develop with them? We are looking specifically at Black and Brown founders, BIPOC entrepreneurs. So from that perspective, we do have some parameters around the percentages of ownership for a company. In addition to that, we do have general themes that we're looking at as far as our investment criteria. So we're pretty agnostic as far as industry, but we do break down into a few themes. We're looking at, first of all, people power, people voice, people participation. So we're very interested in cooperative companies and cooperative type of movements. Next, we're looking at climate resilience, and climate resilience specifically as it relates to our target populations. So there's not just a green transition, but a just green transition. That's very important to us. So we're interested in those as a theme, those companies as well. Lastly, the next one is pretty big bucket, is pretty broad one, where we're interested in, how do we look at companies from a diversity perspective, or industries, sorry, from a diversity perspective, and try to bring diversity into industries where there previously wasn't a lot of diversity. So Jeysi, for example, is a wonderful example of construction, which typically has been male dominated for a very long time. Jeysi is a wonderful example from the standpoint of a woman-run business in the construction field that's doing amazing work. So we really want to support businesses like hers. And beyond that, another thing with Jeysi's company is her ability to, or her intentionality behind providing a pathway for her employees to grow and to prosper, and to start out at an entry level and concretely, make strides to improve and to prosper. So these are things that we really look for in the companies that we're investing in. along those three themes. Those are broad themes. On the real estate side, it's a little bit different, where we're looking at, again, more in that community power, community voice, community ownership. But the main idea is relationships is what we really value in our investments.
So it's not just about funding a business. It's about ensuring that that business has a certain level of impact, not just for themselves, but also for their employees and for their community. And you mentioned Jeysi. Jeysi, what has your experience been like? How you mentioned you're in a male-dominated industry and you're in construction. What has it been like getting contracts in Boston? And what has it been like trying to raise investment capital, trying to bring dollars into your company so that it can grow? What has those two things been like?
Yeah, absolutely. I was actually writing Jonathan because he asked that question. Great timing, Regina. Boston, the way I found to break through those barriers in the city, because it's always like the same three companies, right? Like there's no really that much chance for a smaller contractor to go into the city and get these contracts. So I found a way, like a tiny little secret way through general contracting. So what we did is that we started with the certifications, because I studied the laws, I studied exactly what the regulations, what was expected, how is that, how will the next 10 years will look like in the state. And so I found that through the Massachusetts, the SDO, they provided some certifications, and public work has very set standards and expectations in regards to minority participation. So I found a way in, and I focused on those projects that required that participation. So instead of coming in and asking, hey, give me a shot, it was like, hey, I'm your partner, let's meet your client's goal. And that's how I, ended up working with companies like Skanska, companies like Consigli, and, like the big names out there. And, but it hasn't been easy, and nothing is. I mean, if it's easy, you don't really enjoy it as much. Anyway, so I'm always up for the challenge. But I feel like there's so much work to do, because they want to, for me, probably the biggest, at least where I'm at right now, the biggest challenge is, how do I get out of the box where they put you in? They want you to die there. Like, okay, you're a small contractor, and they want to pin you there. And it's like, okay, you come and do my $50,000 jobs. And then, sorry. So, sorry, I'm in my office, so it's
no, you're good.
They're switching dumpsters. Anyway, so sorry about that. Okay, well, let's ignore the noise. So as I was saying, it's interesting how things have developed, because the first clients that I got, they kept me, like they met me in that, like in that phase of being a small contractor doing, $100,000 and less. And they kept me there for 5 years. And, like they don't, but then the new companies that hadn't met me, and we had already built a nice portfolio, they gave us the $1 million projects. They, like the $10 million projects. And that's what I want to talk about, how BI came through with that. One of those companies that I have never worked with, ended up signing a $12 million contract with me. People that have never met me or my company, they don't know how we perform. But the necessity of filling that requirement of minority, women-owned, and disadvantaged business enterprise opened that door. And thanks to that, I was able to negotiate a multi-year project, multi-million-dollar project. And that's where, like BII, besides, like funding for the heavy equipment, we built that relationship like years before. Like I remember, through Betty, that was the first person I called when I opened Synergy. And I, because I know that Betty, her heart and like her essence is like probably the biggest bridge I know. She's a human bridge. I really admire and love that about her. So I called her because I figured if I call her, I'll probably open 100 doors at the same time. So I did, and actually that's how I came to BII. Yeah. And thanks to BII, I was able to buy heavy equipment in the pre-construction phases and go in as a contractor that looks, and because we are, and the biggest thing is for those massive contractors and owners that we look the part, right? Like, so if we don't show up with those big machineries in brand new vehicles and looking all cartoonish, then they don't see you. They don't see you that you can perform. And so thanks to BII, I was able to sign and comply with their initial requirements. And it was just like a breeze, which I had never had with a bank. I would never had that experience with a bank before. Yeah. So that's the important part that BII played in not just in this contract, but specifically because I decided to use all that, the amount of capital that was available through BII, I used it to buy heavy equipment.
And that's BII, but it's also investors that invest in the fund because they believe in this type of work. And actually, because we have folks that are interested in investing in Fund 2 and investing in companies like Synergy Contracting, back to Marcia, if you could give other potential investors advice or just words of encouragement for not only why they should invest and be with BII, but like why they should care about the economic growth of Black and Brown enterprises. Since you are an investor, what would you say to other folks who are kind of on the fence or thinking about it or want to learn more? What has been your experience?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I won't give financial advice, but I'll give my personal experience and journey. Should it resonate with you all? And so I was going to say, and maybe this will answer even, I think I saw a question in the chat of like how BI has been connecting with like-minded investors. And for me, so if we could repeat the 3 questions really quick so I can organize myself, it was words of encouragement to get started in this, Regina, and then...
Yes, so folks who are maybe potentially interested in also becoming an investor like yourself, what is your advice to them for like taking that next step? Like, as an investor, you care about the economic growth of Black and Brown enterprises. You know the work that we do as BII. So what are some other things you would share from your personal experience of being an investor in the fund?
Well, for myself, I love to ask questions. And what I did is I asked to learn more about what the second fund was and reviewed some materials. And as I was going through it, I literally wrote down values that I care about. I don't have even told this with like Betty or others, but I like wrote down values that are important to me, because that's how I reflect, is by writing down things. But I wrote down, whether it's from a geographic point of view, I'm like, I'm living in the Northeast, friends and family are here. There are issues around ownership, things are expensive. So I was like, okay, that's a value, geographic scope. But then also like, who is investing, like who's on the team, who's on the board, and are they diverse? So that was another value for me, like decision-making power. And then also it was, what are the types of solutions and founders that are being supported? That was another value. And then I believe diverse people are the majority. We're going to keep being the majority. And for me, I'm like, if we invest in that, it's going to perform well from an impact and financial return. So that was aligned. So I wrote these values down, and then as I was going through the materials, I was like, is this hitting the values that I have? And then I wrote down questions and then I emailed it to Betty. And so don't be afraid to ask all these questions. It doesn't matter the amount that you invest in either. So of course there's a certain like minimum, whether you're non-accredited or accredited, but I mean, the amount of time that they'll take to answer questions, like no matter, even if it's on the smaller side, it didn't matter. And so that's what I would say. It's like think about your values and don't be afraid to ask the questions. And for me, investing, so I've invested through different approaches, but this was the first time that I was doing it through a community note as a non-accredited investor in BII. And so there were lots of questions that I had and I was supported through along the way. And I also paid attention to like the relationships I was building with the team. And I'm like, okay, if I'm having this experience, founders that are invested in are also going to have that experience too. And to answer like part of Taylor's questions in the chat, how does, from an external point of view, not from BI's point of view, it was the relationship building that they were doing with both traditional and people like me who aren't traditional, that they've been able to like connect with investors.
Thank you, Marcia. So just being mindful of time, we're going to transition into our Q&A portion. I know a lot of folks have questions in the chat for the panel. So I'm going to transition over and ask a few questions. We will still be ending at 1, so just being mindful of time. But the first question that I want to toss out there, this may be for Henry, but please answer from the point of view that you all have. This question is from Taylor. How does BII find like-minded, supportive investors to build the fund? What has it looked like to convince or build buy-in from traditional philanthropists / donors to participate in this type of fund?
Great question. So first of all, it's our investors who empower us, right? And we are an extension of their objectives. There has to be a certain amount of alignment between what it is that they see as what's needed and are executing their visions, some of their visions with our investments. A lot of investors, as the question implies, are looking at or are familiar with traditional philanthropy, where you make a donation, it's a one-time thing and it's gone and it's done. With impact investing, we're trying to change that a bit, if you will. There's philanthropy. There's definitely a need for philanthropy on one end of the spectrum, but what we're trying to do is look at it almost from an evergreen philanthropy perspective, where you're giving. You've made a philanthropic investment, you've given your money, and instead of a return on your capital in a traditional investment, you're only looking for a return of your capital and a small amount above that as far as the interest they will pay you. So the return of that capital helps you to continue and have an evergreen philanthropical process. So you're giving one time, it comes back to you, and you're able to continue giving that same amount over and over again. That's one of the ideas behind evergreen philanthropy that we're trying to promote, in addition to the traditional, you've given your one time and that's it. As far as buy-in, again, it's a matter of, do your personal objectives, do your personal views and values align with what it is that we're doing, with how we're supporting the different companies that we're trying to invest in, with who we're supporting, with the types of companies, and what we're looking for in them. So it's all a matter of alignment. Once that alignment is there, then the buy-in, if you will, is pretty easy, because it's a matter of, well, this is what I'm looking to do, the work that I want to see, or the outcomes that I want to see. Those are the same types of outcomes that BII is achieving through its investments. So it's a viable investment path for me. It's less of a buy-in, and I can see my objectives being met in this investment.
And additionally, Henry, someone else asked, Jonathan asked, how is the fund performing against the market in regard to investors?
Sure, great question. Let me start by saying that we are not trying to be a market rate return, a market rate fund. So just to define that a little bit, traditionally, investors tend to equate or try to have a relationship between the amount of risk that a particular investment is taking and the amount of return that is going to give back. And the old adage, or the popular adage, is the higher the risk, the higher the return. Well, we're not looking at that. We've really taken a lot of that, a different approach. What we're looking at is what is the risk of a particular investment not being done? What is the risk of this impactful company not taking place? What's the risk to the employees, to society, and for us in general, if this does not happen, this impactful company? And from that perspective, then we really are thinking, okay, well, that is a great risk, the risk of not having that company. So now, how do we bring all the financial structures around that and supports to really strengthen that company and help them succeed? That's how I want to perceive the risk and reward. That's the reward that I want to see from the standpoint of a company doing well. The reward is in the entrepreneur doing well. The reward is in the employees doing well. The reward is in the impact that society is going to get from that company doing well, because what we're looking for is companies where the impact is baked in. It's not an add-on. It's not something where as they grow, they can leave the impact behind. We're looking for something that's built into the DNA of the company, so that as that company grows, the impact grows. And as the impact grows, we all, society, benefit. So if that's the case, I can't not invest in that company. I have to find out, how do we get to yes? How do we make that a viable investment? How do we make them succeed? And how do we ensure that that impact and those outcomes that we all reap the benefits of that reward? So it's really the perspective from which you're coming at investments.
Jeysi, I think this question is directed to you, I'm pretty sure. And it is, what are the communities that you serve with your business, and what do you hope the impact will be? Or what is the impact, and what do you hope the impact will be of your company on the communities you serve?
Absolutely. Let me tell you what I ambition, right? So I like to plan for, like 6 months, a year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. That's like my mindset, right? Like what I'm doing today that is going to help the company grow and grow stronger. Not just, for me, grow is I have a very different perspective about growth. I'm not interested in just showing big numbers. I'm interested in seeing the impact, like who are we bringing, what is that we're doing, and how can we multiply that effect, right? So for example, we started during the pandemic. I pivoted because all of the construction was on hold, by the governor's law, right? So everything that wasn't hospitals or stuff, like everybody was home. So I pivoted, and what I did is that I opened a new division, which was the hazardous cleaning, and that became final cleaning. And in that division, I was able to employ 99%, if not 100, probably the first year was 100% women. Somehow I found, like, even if all the, like the demo and the abatement was stopped, we can still build and make a greater impact. So we created a final cleaning division that is running strong till today, and every year grows more and more. With that being said, my first thought was, okay, how can I help more women into the industry, which has always been my goal, like one of my goals, to see women in construction, like to feel that I'm not as alone as I see myself all the time in this industry, like someone that I can relate to, people that I can relate to, regardless of what we do, whether you are designing or doing the actual work. We all have that same goal in common, to make something beautiful and meaningful. So now with this $12 million project, what I did is that I went into our community and I spoke to the unions and I told them, whoever has that area covered, I do not want your people. I want you to create a system where I can bring my people, and you're gonna make them apprentices, because I do understand that they cannot, you will not allow them to have the same opportunities that other people have had throughout the years, but we can start somewhere. And instead of putting them as journeymen or journeywomen, they can start as apprentices. And that's how we building this. There's probably 50-60% of this project that is gonna be performed by people that had no idea about construction or union or the benefits that come with it. And we send them to Connecticut. We reach an agreement with the unions, and they open for us weeks of training, which the people that are coming into that job are doing right now. So they're training in like, to come up as the prepared people that they need to be at the job site. And with that being said, at the same time, I connected with the Bostonians, English for First Bostonians. And, I said, because I find they do such a great job. And I asked them to submit a proposal. And then I went and met with the unions. And I'm like, listen, my people know what they're doing. It's like when you speak Russian, do you know how to speak Russian? You feel dumb in Russian, right? Like the same way they feel dumb in English. But that could be solved easily. We paid probably millions of dollars in benefits and in education. So now we're just in the final stages to create the first ever, like in the union, English as a second language, part of their educational program. That's what I see in the long term, not just going in and doing a job, but hey, learning the language, being able to communicate and educate. And maybe, if you want to be an engineer at 40, why not?
Right. Amazing. So this will be our final question, and I believe it will be to Aliana, actually. So Aliana, from Lena, and I hope I'm saying that right, how do you fund your operations, especially the technical assistance portion? Are these funded by donors or from the interest on the capital?
Or can I? Yes. Okay. Figuring out sound in office together. So we actually, I know that Betty put an answer in there briefly, but yeah, so we're a nonprofit organization. So we do, most of our operations is funded through grant funding. As Betty said in the chat, we do get a kind of modest management fee from the fund, but it's not like other funds where for-profit funds where essentially the operations are funded through the fees that come off of the fund. That is not the case at all with us. So our operations are grant funded. Our technical assistance is grant funded. We do receive, we're an SBTA provider, a small business technical assistance provider through the Mass Growth Capital Corp, which is a quasi-state agency. And so we receive funding for those activities. And really, for all of us to do this great work. So we are, both, putting money out, but also, and raising money for the fund, but we're also, we have the dual work of also raising money for our operations as well.
Amazing. So we are just about at time. It is now 12:56. Jeysi, Marcia, Henry, thank you so much for being a part of our amazing, amazing panel. I think this was very helpful, great conversation. I want to thank everyone on the call for joining us. If you did RSVP for this event, you will get the recorded version via email very soon. If you want to learn more about Boston Impact Initiative, you can go to bostonimpact.org to find all information. I put .com in the chat, so that was on me. .org to find out all information about Fund 2, about the work that we do, and also if you need to contact anyone of the team, our contacts are on the website as well. Thank you all so much for joining us. Please visit our website to learn more, and we hope to see you at the next one because we are trying to keep this a regular thing. So again, you will get the recording soon. Thank you to our panelists. Please drop words of encouragement in the chat to the panelists because they were awesome. And this was great. And we will see you all next time.
And thank you, Regina.
I try my best.
Thank you.
Thank you so very much, you all, for your time, and looking forward to another one of these. Take care.
Thank you, everyone.